Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, home to 150 million people, a quarter of the entire continent's citizens. The British, who colonized the nation for the first 60 years of the 20th century, ruled over some 250 tribes, often by playing one against the other. So when independence was gained in October 1960, tribalism was a powerful force.
Nigerians who took over independence were faced with the challenge of trying to form a sense of Nigerian belonging and identity, a sense of Nigerian oneness. It was an extremely exciting time for them, but it was also a colossal challenge because at that time most people could only relate to their ethnic origins or their ethnic groupings.
And these divisions have remained within Nigerian society, intermittently causing outbreaks of deadly violence. Despite Nigeria's enormous oil reserves, its population is overwhelmingly poor, collective victims of rampant corruption. But at 50, and with an election just around the corner, can this country finally fulfill its potential and become Africa's biggest success story? Despite there being many different tribes in Nigeria, three major ethnicities have traditionally dominated the country's politics and controlled its resources. And at independence, the federal constitution divided the country into three principalities, each run by one of the main ethnic groups. The Hausa Fulani in the north, the Yoruba in the southwest, and the Igbo in the southeast.
I consider myself, for instance, a Yoruba. You know, before I'm a Nigerian. That's my immediate, instant identity. And I think you'll find that most intellectuals, you know, will say exactly the same, and politicians also. However, here we are together, brought together by the British, operating the same constitution, a new identity, which, you know, sort of supervenes the various ethnic nationalities, is born.
But ethnic divisions have never gone away. And as the various groups vied for supremacy in Nigeria's immediate post-colonial period, the military intervened, just as they had done in other African nations.
We came at a time when the whole Africa, the whole third world, were also changing to another phenomenon, and that is military. In 1952, there was a military coup in Egypt, for example. In the 50s, then it came to Ghana, and so on. So we came within that environment when the military was the in thing.
In January 1966, Nigeria's first military coup took place. It was cautiously welcomed by a population who hoped it would bring equality among the major ethnic groups. But such hopes were quickly dashed when it became clear that the majority of the coup leaders were of Igbo descent and the casualties mostly Hausa.
There was this feeling that the coup was ethnically imbalanced. One side of the country spared, another side of the country had the greater casualty in this, and immediately then there was agitation for more, I quote and unquote, revenge.
So there were reprisals in the north and in certain parts of the south, and it was the first wave of reprisals, and the second wave, or even third wave, was even more brutal than anything.
30,000 Igbo were killed in fighting with Hausas, and around 1 million Igbo were internally displaced.
People were just butchered. It's nothing less than an act of genocide.
Nigeria was soon embroiled in a bloody civil war. On May 30th, 1967, Igbo leader Colonel Emeka Ojukwu unilaterally declared the Independent Republic of Biafra in the southeast of the country. The oil-rich region of the Niger Delta was within its boundaries. But Nigeria's other ethnic groups would not let this region go without a fight.
Those of us who fought the Civil War believe that Nigeria is worth dying for in unity than living in it in division and destruction.
United we stand, divided we fall. All those beatitudes which are so meaningless when you're talking about humanity as something palpable, sensing, feeling, creating, constructing, and then you go to war to preserve the boundaries given to you by a people at whose departure you celebrated. Didn't make sense to me.
And the struggle for unity would come at a devastating cost. Over 1 million people would be killed as the war dragged on, and famine took hold in the self-proclaimed state of Biafra.
I thought the war was very immoral. I still think so till today. These were people who had really, really been brutalized, dehumanized, all of that, and it was bad tactics at the time for them to declare independence, but it was not morally, as far as political morality was concerned, my position was that they had every right.
The war ended in 1970 with the southeast once again part of Nigeria. But divisions persisted and in places remain to this day. At the crossroads of the Muslim north and the Christian south, the British set up a tin mining area around the city of Jos in Plateau State. Migrants from different parts of Nigeria flowed in seeking work. The city became known for its ethnic diversity.
Jos was, in fact, a heaven for all those who were even running away from areas of conflict in other parts of Nigeria.
By the time of independence, though, tin mining was already in decline. Yet these disparate ethnic groups continued to live side by side, competing for ever fewer resources. Over the last decade, sectarian attacks and counterattacks have plagued Jos. The most recent outbreak of violence occurred in March 2010, when a machete-wielding mob from the Muslim Hausa Fulani ethnic group descended on the Christian village of Dogonahawa on the outskirts of the city. This is just the latest in a series of attacks on both sides of the community.
On Tuesday, 19, early in the morning, we see some Muslim boys gatherings, many of them with arms, and some armies together with them.
This is the rock on that fateful day where we began to see smoke coming out from this house after they started throwing locally manufactured bombs of bottle contained with gasoline.
Those guys, they are calling tires, petrols, bonding our houses some with this, and they're digging our house, burning it. We are running with the children, and some women called me that I should come back. They have shot my husband.
There's a house where we saw uniformed personnel pouring gasoline. They asked us to vacate the whole community. We left. Yes, we recognize some childhood friends. Actually, I went to a Roman Catholic mission school, and I was born here, bred here, trained here. So I intermingle, so I know what I have seen.
I start coming back. I come and meet him. I said, Daddy, what happened? He couldn't talk to me. The only word he said that he's sorry. He didn't talk to me again.
We lost about 6 people. 6.
Throughout Jos, thousands have died. Thousands more have been made homeless.
You have a situation where perpetrators become victims and victims become perpetrators. In a situation of that nature, you cannot continue to play the blame game and begin to say it's only this side or that side. Because certainly no one wants to sit down and watch for him to be annihilated.
On the surface, it would seem that religious tensions are to blame for the violence. But according to some, this is a simplistic explanation.
I am one of those who consistently says that this is not the case. If we have a crisis that is of a religious nature, I believe by now we would have arrested it, because we have so many religious leaders, Muslims and Christians, who are willing to work in order to prevent this crisis. But that we have worked and the crisis still erupts each time, then means that we have to look beyond religion. When you look in the wrong direction and religion is blamed for everything, I say it is like escaping the reality.
The reality is far more complex. Since independence, Nigeria has grown from 3 provinces to 36 states, with the intention of distributing the nation's resources more fairly between the different ethnicities. But in Plateau State, a distinction has grown between those whose ancestral origins were in the state and those who moved there later. This, coupled with ethnic and religious differences, has made Jos especially vulnerable to brutal conflict.
Something is just still very wrong, and that is why a particular area will be identified with a particular ethnic group or religion, and anybody who cares or who tries to come there is perceived as an enemy.
The city was once lauded for its integrated population, but it is now largely divided between Muslim and Christian neighborhoods.
It is dangerous in the sense that now when people are segregated, when there is a conflict, people know that we direct our attack to this environment or that environment. And this is really becoming a problem.
Something has to be done very aggressively by those in power, that they should create a sense of belonging and that patriotic feeling, that national spirit, that national pride. I'm a Nigerian first and foremost. No, I am this tribe, I'm this religion before I'm a Nigerian. This has to change. Even what is happening in Jos now, if you don't tackle it well and try to proactively prevent it, it will escalate. And before you know it, it has assumed a national dimension.
Four years before Nigeria gained independence from Britain, oil was discovered. The potential for prosperity was clear. Between the oil boom of 1970 and 2007, the Nigerian government's coffers have been enriched by almost 1.2 trillion US dollars in today's money. But much of the profit has been squandered. The country has consistently ranked one of the most corrupt in the world, and 90% of the population continues to live on less than $2 a day.
Corruption. Is that the disease of Nigeria?
It's not just a Nigerian disease. Corruption is everywhere. The difference in Nigeria is that in most of the lands that I know, you're talking about Soviet Union, you're talking about Russia, even the former communist countries and socialist countries and so on, there is corruption, high-level corruption. The difference is that here, corruption is generated the wrong way around. In other places, during development process, construction, people look for ways and means of hiving off something. Here, people begin by saying, how much do we need? Now let's think of a project. And so the project is launched, the money is hived off, and then the project is abandoned because it was never intended to take place anyway. So we've seen nothing in return for corruption. It's almost like what development there is has been almost by accident.
In Nigeria, stories of politicians and businessmen siphoning off the country's resources are legion. It is estimated that over $380 billion has been stolen or wasted by Nigerian governments since independence. For the majority of these 5 decades, military governments unaccountable to the electorate have held power. Under General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, known as IBB, who ruled the country for 8 years from 1985, corruption is said to have reached unprecedented levels. The World Bank estimates that in 1 year alone, $2.1 billion in petroleum sales were diverted to unknown accounts.
Everybody I've spoken to feel that your tenure as head of state took Nigeria to the worst levels of corruption. What is your response to these?
My response is simply that nobody can prove that to you. If you ask for proofs, you wouldn't get it.
But in Lagos, Nigeria's biggest city, proof of the effects of corruption is there for all to see. In a city of close to 17 million people, 2/3 of the population live in slums. In Makoko, a community built on the waterways of Lagos, locals survive without even the most basic resources.
Why is there no school? Why is there no clinic? Why are there no basic resources?
People that are living in the community, they have no capital, money to establish school or to get hospital because they have to be educated before they will go and learn doctor or anything, and the government couldn't be able to look after them. Basically, I think we can't be able to rely on the government in Nigeria, and I think probably the community as well can start organizing to help themselves, because we were saying that everyone help those who help themselves, and that is what we started doing now.
Yet, despite the economic extremes and the cosmopolitan population, Lagos is, by and large, a harmonious city. Although predominantly Yoruba, almost all of Nigeria's ethnic groups are represented here. And like the nation itself, Lagos is divided almost equally between Christians and Muslims.
The people of Lagos, they are interwoven. Among some families in Lagos, you find Christians, you find Muslims. If you decide now to fight, or there is a war between the Christian and Muslim, you will have, before you kill 4 persons, you will kill one of your own family. So that's why in Lagos, there is perfect understanding among the Muslims and the Christians. So we cannot discriminate against ourselves.
Lagos is energetic, exciting and vibrant, and it's fast becoming a 24-hour city. In fact, many people call it the New York City of Africa, and that's despite serious problems. For example, a lack of power, a lack of water, and the high cost of living. It's still a city on the move.
My mother trained me in trader way because my mother, she's a trader that's going down to Cotonou to go and buy something. So later, she will sell it in Lagos here. So we are selling at Jazeera Market in Maoko. So I was there training up. So I started my own business. I did with agric. So I'm selling vegetable, okra, yam. That is the work that I'm doing for a living.
So there's basically like an association
here of women, right? I mean, so you're basically in charge of making sure that everybody is obeying the rules. But what I'd like to really know is what kind of women do you have working here?
We have many women here. You know, we have Igbo people. Many of them they are not Nigerian. Some from Ivy Coast, some from Cotonou. We have Cotonou, we have Badagry in Lagos State. We have many.
And it's not just immigrants who are fueling the country's economy. There is some evidence of a reversal of Nigeria's brain drain. 15 million citizens left the country during the 1980s and 90s due to a lack of opportunities, but some are now returning.
I mean, to be honest, the spirit of the people is just the most amazing thing. You cannot beat that.
Indestructible.
It's just great. Having lived in the UK for 20 years and schooling, university, city life, just to be, I think, at home, and I think I've got really fortunately great staff that work. You can contribute back, you can help in their lives, you can help with their education, you can make an impact here that I could do, I think, if I was living sort of in the West.
One of the things I like to see, take care of the basics. Have the government take care of the basics. Security, get policies in place, let the private sector excel where the private sector tends to excel, and unlock the creative potential of this country.
We can change our own country and continent, because if you fix Nigeria, you fix Africa. That is a fact. With how many million or 150 million? 1 in 4. If you fix Nigeria, Africa is fixed.
With upcoming elections in 2011, Nigerians are hoping that 50 years after independence, the political will exists to make the most of the country's enormous potential.
Sometimes civil society goes to sleep for a long time and wakes up and suddenly realizes that the world has really moved beyond when it went to sleep. And then it becomes angry and things happen. And sometimes, hopefully, it happens in a systemic, organized way. Right now, civil society is waking up, and one is observing and participating with cautious optimism.